Welcome to Miche. We are just outside Venice, and apparently in here they actually make cycling components in Italy. Let's go have a look. Welcome to the Miche showroom. We're going to take a look at the factory in a second. Now, we know Miche mostly for making cassettes that are compatible with Campag free hubs, that sort of thing, and making lots of little trinkets like GPS mounts and various bottom brackets and hubs. Really famous for hubs. They used to make hubs for lots of other brands as well. Now they're really doubling down and just doing their own brand and being really proud of the few ranges that they do make, and also getting much more into wheels. So this is their entire range of wheels, ranging from your standard 45mm deep right up to your time trial tri-spokes and disc wheels. An incredible range. And then what's really impressed me is their range of these sort of aluminium and carbon cranksets. So let's go and take a closer look at how it's made in their factory. We'll come back to this in a second. This is actually a spoke flattening machine. They actually buy round spokes from Sapin and then flatten them themselves to a unique profile. Interesting, never knew that. The wheel building operation starts with spoke threading and then through to this machine, which actually tests and then tensions all the spokes. You can see the spoke tension coming up on the graph here, to a little QC machine here, eventually get racked up and then head over to get the rim tape applied. So this machine here is actually going around photographing every nipple, and then a little injector comes down and injects a tiny little amount of thread locker onto the reel. And they keep the records of all those spoke nipples. They really want to make sure that the thread is penetrated all the way through the nipple and keep a record of that data. Good bit of QC. The Miche testing lab, absolutely fascinating. This is the crank testing machine. Goes through a load of 1800 newtons, and what's incredible is actually how much those crank, and to be fair, the axle flexes. They reckon a minimum of 100,000. They test to at least 200,000. This one's been going for almost 400,000 cycles, still not broken. And then on this side, we're looking for wheel stiffness. So you mount a wheel in here, apply a load here, look for the deflection reading here. They can also compress it using that hydraulic ram here. This is the standard UCI drop test. And here we're testing chains. So Miche actually make their own chains. Probably more famous on the track side, but going through its paces here. And then finally, these two machines are doing batch testing of the spokes. Whenever they get a delivery of spokes, they take out random spokes, put them through a test like this to make sure that entire batch is going to be okay. Just stumbled across this interesting looking bottom bracket. It looks like a threaded one piece, but if you unscrew it, it unscrews in a normal direction, which means that the pedaling load would naturally unscrew it, unlike a BSA bottom bracket, which is reverse threaded so that it tightens under pedaling load. Anyway, we've got a 41mm nominal here and a 41mm here with a little O-ring. So effectively tightening this would introduce that press fit. Now, I think you're going to have to make sure that your frame is in tolerance. Also, interestingly, across here, it was 84mm, which means that as you clamp on down on the frame, you've still got the clamping force of a thread together bottom bracket. Miche have also just been showing us these chain rings. So 7075 aluminium with this carbon plate. Now, this looks like that very thin carbon sheet sort of stuck on. It's not a carbon sticker apparently. Very similar to the Seabury cranks, to be honest, but apparently that does add some element of stiffness without adding the weight that normal 7075 aluminium wouldn't. But quite competitively priced. We're going to find out more. Apparently they also do some Shimano compatible ones as well. Fairly competitively priced wheels actually. I think they're about 1,300 euros. I don't know what the GBP price is, but these are the Kleos rims. Now, they did say that these are imported from China. I didn't say what factory. Aluminium nipples, Sapin CX-ray spokes, and their own hubs obviously, and they're still using like ceramic speed bearings, etc. So pretty competitively priced. The interesting thing for me is that the hook is super aggressive. It's probably one of the deepest and sort of most aggressive hook designs I've seen. 23mm wide, so if anyone's still into running 25mm wide tyres at super high pressures, this is potentially a good option. Just got access to the little stand showing us the Shimano compatible carbon chain rings, if you like. Again, 7075 aluminium, this carbon stiffening plate on there, but more aerodynamics. They do a power meter version and a non-power meter version. The Chainrings are 200 quid, so actually not badly priced compared to the price of a normal Dura-Ace chainring. That's pretty competitive actually. And they look like beautiful quality, all the same machining on the back here. I really hope you enjoyed that look at the Miche factory. Miche factory is just behind me. We've got mountains over there. The old town is over there. It's a really, really pretty place, I promise you. So my thoughts on it. Well, first of all, it was great to see Miche evolve from what I know it to be. I've always known it to be a manufacturer of things like track chain rings and track hubs, but also making cassettes that are compatible with Campagnolo hubs. It's been one of those brands that I dip into occasionally as a bike shop. And now they seem to be expanding that product and sort of doubling down on their sort of track and racing heritage and bringing it out to a wider market. They also seem to be stepping away from their OEM manufacturing, trying to concentrate much more on their own brand. So in the past, that whole manufacturing facility has been famously making hubs, but putting another brand on it for other companies. Now they're a bit like, no, come on, we're Miche, we should be putting our own brand on this. So I definitely applaud that. Interesting to see what they're doing with the chain rings and adding that carbon layer. Now, we've seen this before, we've had it from Seabury, and those Seabury cranks just look like a tiny paper thin, if that, veneer of carbon stuck onto those aluminium chain rings. Here I actually got a chance to hold that carbon section in my hand. It's about 1 millimeter thick and rigid. It's still just bonded onto the 7075 carbon cranks, and I'm still a bit unsure as to how much actual stiffness that gives you as opposed to just infilling with the aluminium. But anyway, keen to see where that goes. They're not the only people that are developing this hybrid carbon and aluminium sort of chainring idea. Now, onto the wheels. Now this was really interesting. Miche have always done a fairly cost-effective track and like training wheel, but we're seeing them move more and more into the carbon wheel sets. I did ask them about this and they said, yes, okay, we buy our rims from China. They could not find a local supplier of carbon rims, but because more than 50% of the value has been added in Italy, they can still put the made in Italy stamp on this because they make their own hubs. Interestingly, they're buying the spokes from Germany, from Sapin, but they're flattening them themselves. So they've got a spoke machine there where they flatten them and they develop their own spoke profiles. That was super interesting. One, because they can control stiffness of the spoke and the characteristics they want, but also they can buy them on a massive batch and then either butt them or stamp them as to how they want them for the wheel sets they're building. That was pretty interesting. I wasn't expecting to see that. The wheel sets are pretty standard, to be fair. You'll find lots of people out there making a similar wheel set. What was interesting is probably the direction that they're going into. And I've got to be careful what I say here because some of it was sort of still being tested and under embargo. But they are trying to catch up with other brands that are developing stuff with carbon spokes. And I was asking them why it took so long for Western brands in general to sort of catch up with the Chinese, and they didn't see it like that. They saw it as they get access to all the tech. So those carbon spokes with the little titanium ends, they were there being tested. They're made by a company called Venoa, but we've already seen them featured on wheels from Neat Press, for example. And they were saying that when they launch a wheel, they have to send it out to all their markets. They send them to South America, North America, Asia, Africa, the whole of Europe, to all their distributors, and it has to be right. And they don't let a product out until they've done all the testing. They're really confident with it. And carbon spokes is still a relatively new technology, and they're still experimenting with their hub designs as to how many spokes should be on the non-drive side, should they be crossed, how many crosses should they have, what the tension should be, how much tension it loses when you add a tyre. All that sort of stuff is still being tested. And that makes perfect sense based on what we've seen from the Chinese wheels. They seem to throw it out, and then when we get them, spoke tension's all over the place. They lose loads of tension as soon as you put a wheel on. Miche is saying that we really need to make sure we get it right from day one. We don't have the luxury of just stopping production. Once we launch a wheel set, it is sent out to a global audience, so it has to be right. Really interesting insight as to how that works. So there we go, I've learned a lot. I hope you have too. If you have, please give this video a thumbs up. Please think about subscribing to the channel. And as always, get your comments down below. I'm always interested to hear what you've got to say. Thanks for watching, see you soon.